Hey guys, we're moving back again to large scale aircraft and into our first large scale jet with Revell's 1/32 scale ME262B-1 kit. Let's open her on up and take a look. Now, one thing I will say is that this is the slide type box, so you'll excuse me as I get these out, as we will put them back as we go, as getting them back in the box is a little bit of a challenge. Okay, so we'll just start right here. First sprue up, and I will go ahead and just also move the mirror sprue aside. But first up, we've got parts for our main gear and nose gear, as well as one of the cockpit seats, one of the slats, and some of the components for the landing gear, as well as two of the 30mm cannons. The cannons themselves, and hopefully this will show up on camera, are pretty nicely detailed right out the box. If you're going showstopper model, you may want to invest in some resin ones, but for most people who may build it with the gun bay open, they're passable. Only other thing I would add is, despite being very nicely detailed, nice had the wheels had some sag to them. Right, we'll go here next. Next up, we've got one of the fuel tank parts, as well as the antennas for the radar. Overall, the radar are nicely scaled. Could be better if maybe they were in photo etched, but it's getting to splitting hairs as to the diminishing returns. So out of the box for most people, again, will be fine, but it's one area to consider possibly splurging and upgrading. Also, be aware that they can bend quite easily. Nice that they put some more protection around them. And another nice thing about this kit is that it includes full engines for both of the UMO engines that the aircraft has. So you get tons of these internal parts. Now, for most part, if you're going to be building it as a line bird, you're not going to see a lot of this. And I would say once we get instructions, this will be more evident, but I would say it's almost worth it not to put on all the detailing and trappings. But if you are going to have it opened up some and being worked on, it's more than welcome. Get full facing to the front and from the rear, so that is quite nice to have for those who like showing off those kinds of details. Plus, it saves you having to go aftermarket for those things. Continuing on, more build-up parts for the engines, as well as some of the internal superstructure. We got two of the side panels for the cockpit, and some other cockpit components, including the rear seat. Hopefully this will show up in focus. These details are alright. They're not bad, but they're not the best. So, sort of in the middle. So for most people, again, acceptable. For others, you may want to invest in aftermarket upgrades, either photo etch or even going full resin. More of the cockpit area buildup as well, including on that sprue. Moving on, now we're starting to get into some of the wing components, including the engine shrouds and the main middle underwing section. Nice thing about this kit is it does have full flaps and slats for all you to position them. You'll see that more in a second when we get to the wings. Also have our front control panel. Something else I'm going to add right now. Big issue I have with this kit is it has parts spread over almost all of the sprues in terms of, cockpit parts on several different sprues. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge mess on layout. It's something Revell could have done a lot better. It's not quite to find that one Lego piece in the pile of Legos from when you first put them all out, but it's almost up there. But I digress. Anyway, getting back in, we've got parts for some of the flaps and some of the slats. And the fact that they do give you full options to configure them all is a nice bonus feature. We'll jump over to the clear parts for now. For these, they did a fantastic job. Most of the framing and such is inside of the part, so that will make it a little harder to cut masks for unless you go after market, but still more than doable. You're just going to have to take your time and go slow with these. Much the same with this second sprue for the front windscreen. Beyond that, we also have some armored glass for the windscreen, and obviously the gun sights and light sources. Overall, they're all nicely clear and properly scaled, which is a nice bonus. Next up, and this is where we can start to see just how big this guy is. It's not quite to the same size yet as the P-47 that we reviewed previously from Hasegawa, but it's definitely up there. This is going to be a very big bird once she's built. Again, as I mentioned, you can do the flaps and slats in different configurations, so that's a very nice bonus. You also have full build-up. All of the detail on this is recessed. You have some internal detail on the fuselage parts, but you do build up a lot of that off of there as it's separate from the sidewall. So that's both good and bad depending on your skill level. Now, one thing I am going to note here. Since you're building up the gun bay, if you're going to have it open, you do have a major issue in that you're going to have very little space for any type of nose weights. And something with a bird like this, it's more than likely going to be a tail sitter. So, that being said, you're almost forced to do it with the gun bay closed. An alternative would be if you're doing a diorama scene to permanently affix the wheels, you'll be able to get away with that. But you're going to be very hard pressed to get enough weight in the nose to keep it from sitting without some kind of support. So that is something to be aware of. Continuing on from there, we got all of the components for the flaps and slats. You also have positionable elevators, which is another nice feature. Have the obviously next the mirror of that. We'll skip over that while I get these back in. This is one of the downsides of the side open boxes without a proper sub box for them. Now, last up, as far as sprues go, we have all of our smaller detail parts as well as the build up for the nose, including openings for the cannons, the gun bay access hatch, as well as the rest of the cockpit flooring and build up for that. Also include our landing gear and all the appropriate struts for them. Overall, there's a lot of detail on this kit, but because of how they've organized it all, it's damn near a turkey suit of finding stuff. So that is something to be aware of. It does add a fair challenge to this kit. So I try to get these back in. Then let's get into the decals. Included, you have building options for 2 aircraft. Also included on the decal sheet are seat belts and all the appropriate stencils. Most of the gauges and such are done as decals, so that is something to be aware of, as well as the side panels. So I personally found those to be real hit and miss in terms of getting them on correctly. So that is something to be aware of. You may be better off going with photo etch for those. Now let's get into the instructions. Like almost all aircraft, you start off building up the cockpit. In this case, starting with the pilot station for moving on to the radar operators station, and then building up the nose section, including the gun bay, and sort of working your way back for beginning work on the main fuselage and building things up from there. Now, this kit has a lot going on, so this is another one you're going to want to take your time building it, as it's very easy to miss a step and then have to basically force stuff apart to get it, the part you missed in. Again, as I said, there's a lot of detail going into these engines, so that is something to be aware of. Unfortunately, a lot of this won't be seen if you do pose them without being worked on. I'll be honest, it's kind of disappointing they didn't include a third engine just to have as a display piece. If anyone from Revell's watching this, I would say maybe even just release a kit of the engine would be kind of neat. But that's just me personally. Build up then from there proceeds on to external, getting the wings on and doing up the landing gear, doing up the gun, closing up the gun bay, flaps, slats, all the gear doors, and clear parts. Obviously, be careful working on the antennas, as that's going to be a bear. And yeah, once everything, the progress is logical, but honestly, there's a lot you're going to have to do. Now, big thing with this kit is the camouflage scheme. There is mottling for days for this guy. So that is something to be aware of. If you're not prepared to do a lot of little odd dots and like, this may not be the kit for you. Yeah, not only that, if you happen to have some type of masking that makes this a lot simpler, please, for the love of God, post a comment on how or what or where you got it, because yeah, this is one of those, it's going to be just as much as a bear to paint this thing as it is to get her built up. So overall, Revell have an interesting kit here. It's got a lot of detail, a lot of great things with it. The problem is how they've laid it out on the sprues is all over the place. So you're going to spend a lot of time just trying to find these things. And then obviously it's just a lot you got to build up in order to do this guy. Though thankfully it's a logical build up. So while, yeah, it's going to take you a while to build, it's still a good way of building it. And obviously then, with the added difficulty of the paint scheme, I cannot recommend this for anyone but advanced model builders. This is a challenging kit. But once you do get it built up, it will be an impressive kit. So that was a look at Revell's 1/32 scale ME262B-1 kit. Good kit, but a bear of a challenge. So until next time.